Exactly. And how it relates and.
You can, move that mic down because I have the natural outdoor voice and some of us, Steve.
Some don't.
Put it right in front of Steve.
Some of them they challenge.
Put it in between Steve and Norma. Okay, so let's call this June MSRAC meeting to order at 9:01. The first item on the agenda after the call to order is approval of minutes of the May 12th, 2023 regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept the May 12th meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Hi,
Aye.
Aye.
thank you, whoever did those minutes while I was on vacation.
I did. For correspondence, I think you had that one email you wanted to share with the,
Yeah, just yesterday, this is the time of year when UConn reaches back out for the following year's, the Rising Senior Class project ideas. I do not currently have one. I did not have one at this point last year either. Last year, I think we had a little meeting and batted some projects around before we arrived at the two that we came up with, which was improvements to the transfer station and a partial concept plan for 630. Was generally pleased with both. I mean, I've been generally pleased with the results we've had from the UConn teams all along. I mean, they are what they are, right? You can't use them on their own. You have to, but they're very supportive of other things.
yeah, they can be inspirational.
They can be inspirational. They look really good on a grant report to the state to see that, we've used students from the state's flagship university to help us solve a problem. They love that. So if anybody has ideas, the deadline for me to make the request is the 18th of August. So no hurry, but I do not particularly have anything in mind.
Maybe we can all think about it over the next month and maybe somebody will have an idea by the time we get to our July meeting, unless anybody has an idea right now.
I mean, over the last several years, we've had them do an awful lot of different concepts.
Yeah, some of them we've employed in various ways.
But it does give us ideas.
And I mean, this was the first time I ever worked with students was just this time. And I think if we can get other like mentor, I mean, it kind of engaged me, like to be working with these students and I mean, it might engage just other professionals, I don't know, or in a community to.
There's definitely different levels of engagement between the two teams. The transfer station team was engaged. They, did come back and ask questions of me and of Joe, but they did not seem to seek as much professional input, which in this case would have been from Joe. They did ask him a few questions, but I don't think there was anywhere near as much back of house communication that was going on like there was with you and Wayne. But you and Wayne are super attached to that particular project for years of interest. So.
Right.
Are there more projects than student teams or more student teams than projects?
I don't know. There was at least one year where I submitted something and it was not picked up. And I think it was, as I recall, it was doing drainage for the Blaine Road bump out before ECCD was in play. I have an update on that, by the way. So where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So I don't know. It probably varies from year to year, I guess. It's free to municipalities now, which it wasn't up until the pandemic. And I did confirm that that's in perpetuity. It wasn't just a pandemic thing. So I don't know why a municipality wouldn't seek that out, particularly a small one, but I have no idea.
Actually, well, one thing did just come to mind, but you might be on top of that. What about design of the permaculture garden or something? Or is that too agricultural and not engine? Because these are still civil engineering students, right?
They are civil engineering students. I have yet to encounter any of them in any of the student teams that I've worked with that have a particular focus in landscape architecture or interest in that. Doesn't mean that there's not something there. I could certainly throw it out. We got the executed contract for that. I got it finally this week. Turns out they signed it in mid-April and just never sent it to me. So I lost 2 months. But because of that, that planning project's gonna start soon. So the timing could dovetail well. It's not necessarily a bad idea to have them be an additional.
I mean, I don't know, they might have to design, I don't know if they have to design walkways or some drainage or signage, I don't know.
That's,
But I'll-
that's an excellent idea. So I'll, the project
Yeah,
partners are gonna
sounds
have a
good.
Zoom call next week, so I'll run that by
And they may be
Dan and Margot from E ECCD.
maybe some stream bank stabilization or something, I don't know.
I like it.
And we got 2 last year, so maybe we can think of more. and make it back from it.
Yeah.
That's why I wonder if Parks and Recs, I'm just kind of brainstorming, like, I wonder if they have any facilities that they want to see designed.
I'll throw one out. It's not part of MSRAC, but we do have 4 or 5 acres up in the Lillian Ave area, of Bonnet Acres,
Is that one that the guy was trying to buy
Yes.
from the town?
which is a perfectly flat piece of property up there. And the reason why it drains very well, there's not much up in that area. It probably would be a nice project because we're having the difficulties with Bull Hill and the soccer fields with drainage up there on that 80 acres, and the cost would be extremely expensive to do that. That maybe we could do something over there with playground, a track around the outside, soccer fields. And because it's already perfectly flat,
Right. And how
And-
many acres is that? again?
4 to 5 acres. And that could be, because it's not going to be much going into it as far as drainage. It drains because it was a gravel bank back in the day. So,
So it's got no conservation value in particular.
well, it was donated to the
I know
town.
it's a part of open space,
Correct.
but
So I
open
mean,
space isn't always conservation value. Sometimes it's recreational.
recreation. So I'm just throwing that out because I've mentioned it to Brian before as an alternative. That maybe we could develop that, especially with that cost up there in Bull Hill. And what it'll cost us, not that we want to abandon that completely, because that's 80 acres of nice property. But, you know, topsoil, figure out a track and plant some grass, and maybe we could do a really short amount of money, but put in a number of things there that it could be good community up there.
Yeah, and I would think that would get good community support too.
Yeah,
Mm,
because everything's more towards the center of town,
Yeah,
and,
2 good ideas right off the bat.
Yeah.
That's
but,
why I like you guys.
but one of the nice things, I mean, other than some of the projects we've done over the years. Like the 630, and you get that barnstorm, we did like a little park over on Reardon Road, it never went anywhere, but it's always a possibility.
Mhm.
They came up with a design how to use that property that goes down. It's a different vision, that was what Mary had, it's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
That had the cistern up there,
Is that area which is the intersection of Blaine and Reardon? That's
almost
flat where
Elliott,
people park there all the.
almost Elliott, no,
Oh,
it drops off and there's a cistern up there that we had, gotten from, Blaine. Leon Blaine, that we ended up inheriting, but there was a cistern that used to fed the railroad for fresh water for the steam engine days. So we had that up there, so we were just kicking something around, and they came in, and they kind of designed something. Which, so, when you get somebody else looking at an area, especially the younger ones, what would you want? And give us some great ideas.
And plus, like I said, engaging just other adults in the community, if they could engage somebody from Thompson Youth Soccer or something to get input for that. Field that you're talking about, like what
Okay.
are the dimensions for the, whatever, I don't know whether they still have peewees and micros, so they can get some design information maybe.
I like it.
I think that property up there would be a great project.
Nice. Any other ideas on that correspondence brainstorming? And like I said, we can still come back next month if anybody thinks of anything. Okay, then moving on to item 4, citizens' comments. There are no citizens
No
here,
citizens are,
none in the Zoom room either.
Nope.
Okay, item 5, committee business, A, Main Street reconstruction.
well, I'm working on that CIF grant right now, so we've had now, Freeman's 90% plans. Since he finished it, they are submitted to LOTSIP. I did see Jim Larkin at an unrelated meeting in Putnam a couple of weeks ago, and I, just to tidy it up, said, am I correct in thinking at best through LOTSIP, we're 4 to 6 years out? And he said that's probably about right. Because the local COG does not have any funds in that coffer. So at the rate they rebuild, 4 to 6 years. So in the short term, the only option I see is, in fact, if we get an award through CIF, which is the grant application I sent you. My draft so far, that is the main activity, the highest ticket activity in that proposal. I mean, I think we have a decent shot on this one because of the way CIF is organized. It's only 55 eligible communities. They want stuff that's close to shovel ready. The only place where it's a little fuzzy to me is the clear through line on the economic development value, because it does come through DECD. But I think that is a narrative I can, construct. But it's clearly the weakest part of the narrative because it's infrastructure. But that's it. I mean, until we find a grant source, that's not getting funded locally. And it's $3.3 million.
Right, well, I think we just kind of segued into B, so we might as well go in a little more detail about that. Grant, I know Tira asked me to forward on her draft, documents and everything for review. So. you're
Yeah,
looking
I
for
mean,
feedback?
I'm really just looking for feedback because, the opening draft on these grants for me, it just always feels like a hot mess. I'm at the copy paste portion of my grant writing career because it's all building on old projects. So I'm, copying, pasting and trying to adapt, and it just always feels like oval pegs and round holes to me. So whatever you guys have as thoughts.
When is that going?
It's due on the 30th of this month. And there's more of it since I sent it you guys. I've gone further on. The place where I'm really stalled is the place where I always stall, which is measuring the outcomes.
Yeah.
To this day, I don't know how to measure the outcomes on a sidewalk, right? I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to measure the outcomes on a park. I mean, I can tell you that at the end, we can measure it by saying, yes, it's complete. It's better than it was.
You measure a loss of complaints and a tally of compliments.
I mean, with that bar grant that we had gotten a few years back,
Yeah,
with the connectivity between the two mills, that would seem like a natural piece that would help with that connectivity.
that's true. That's a good point, Ken, that it's not so much measuring the completion of the sidewalk, but measuring completion of prior set goals. That's not bad at all.
Well, like you said, completing the loop, I mean, that's like a
Right.
physical,
Yeah.
measurable goal that now that there's, ADA compliant down one side, that the whole route will be ADA compliant, that could be measurable.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, this is always the part that trips me up because I just don't know what to say.
Yeah, and DEC already bought into the bar grant,
Yes.
with us.
I can show the investment
Right.
pattern very
So
clearly.
that would be the complete part of that project.
I have a visualization for that already that I just need to
Yeah.
update for this, but
Then you're talking with the economic development, the walkability, what they're gonna be upgrading with the bakery, what we're doing at 65 Main, what can happen definitely with the school project, with the housing, and where Jill's was with the funeral policy, the building next door there.
which is up, there's a lessee.
Oh,
Yeah, but I'm just
nice.
saying, but that can all tie in.
Yeah.
With more
Nice.
walkability, especially with this continuing forward, people are gonna be more apt to walked and drive.
Yeah, oh, I can definitely make this is what we believe.
Right.
I mean, that's what I'm doing. The question is, how can we? Because what they're asking is, how are you going to measure and show that you have succeeded? And they're really not just talking about how are you going to show you have succeeded in fixing a road. That's obvious before and after. It's that we are making a case, because this is the Department of Economic and Community Development, that this will have a lifting effect. And how do we show that? And it is very fuzzy, but I think that your first instinct is absolutely correct to say, look, these are the investments that have already been made. And these are the goals that were set. And we have accomplished this goal by doing.
Is there any like research of studies of people that have like, could you find anything like when this much infrastructure was improved in some neighborhood in some city over the next 10 years, something and something? I mean, could there be any
Maybe.
citing of a student that
There's definitely stuff related to walk score. But because walk score isn't very old as an entity, you can definitely show the comparative values of communities that have high walkability versus those that have poor walkability. I don't know that they have enough data in that data set to show how a community improved, but they might, so I'll try walk score.
one thing I don't know, you know how you have phase 1 projects completed or underway? The one thing, I don't know whether it's appropriate to put it in here, but the one thing that could potentially be missing isn't that, I forget exactly how it's worded, but that the tax incentive thing in that district.
Oh, yeah, the rehabilitation thing.
Because
Yes, I can put that in there.
I think that of something that's accomplished, especially when a lot of those houses could, benefit from facade improvements and different things like that, that might be something accomplished to show that the town has.
Yeah, that's a good one. I will pop that in.
And obviously it's adjacent to the mill. And the redevelopment of the mill into residential housing creates that whole, as we were saying, the loop for those people for both exercise, down to the park, a cleaner, nicer route down to the park along the river. Somehow
Yeah.
tie that in
Yeah,
as a game because of the commercial aspect, there are going to be businesses in the mill, hopefully. And then you do have the restaurant down by the school, the old, St. Joe's, what's going in there, do you know?
brewery.
Where?
Another one, we don't have one.
And Jill G's,
Jill and G's, yeah, a little brewery. I don't know if there's gonna be food or just.
Well, no, you have the drafters.
Yeah, but that's not a brewery. That's just a.
Oh, they're
That's a
actually,
restaurant and
oh,
bar.
It's a
when you say
sports
brewery,
bar.
Yeah, when you say brewery, they're
That's a
actually
brewery.
gonna
They're
brew
gonna
beer
make
there.
brewery.
oh, cool.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's what we tried to get the schoolhouse in that direction. We had one party interested in. They couldn't see it, which was crazy, but
Couldn't see that.
yeah.
That'd be natural.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
You want
so
to-
that's all helpful. If anybody wants to send actual comments or markups, please feel free to do it. I always get anxious is a strong word. I get a little bound up about it while I'm drafting it, and then it's sort of all lets loose and it's fine.
All right, well, I mean, I wrote up just a couple of question marks or something. I can just leave this with you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I mean, because the one comment, there was a statement about the town has a shrinking population of college tracked school age children. I mean, I know that there's a shrinking population of children, but are we thinking negatively to say that they're not college tracked? I don't know that.
Well, that is an open question. I would say that what we are proposing at 65 Main in that incubator is precisely to serve as a resource for kids who aren't college tracked.
Right.
And our kids are not college tracked, not the ones coming out of the public school system. I mean, there are some who go to college, don't get me wrong, but as a body, they are not. And their options are few, and that's exactly what that facility is meant to boost up, is the
Right.
population we have.
I understand that. It just makes it seem like
Yeah, I know.
we're getting dumbed down.
Actually, in the real world, that the population would need is the kids going to tech schools. There's
And service oriented,
absolutely, there's
it's
just,
such a high need.
It's the demand.
yeah, there's just no one out there coming into any of the trades. I mean, I shouldn't say no one, but it's so
No.
small.
I know.
Yeah,
And right now they can write their ticket too.
that's right.
It's such high demand.
We have company down from Nova Scotia and they've got the same problem up there. No plumbers, no carpet. They've got. The young people just do not want to work or do not want to go into the trades.
They don't want manual.
I don't want to do that.
Well, for like 2 generations, the idea of upward mobility from your parents was getting out of physical labor,
Mhm.
going to college and advancing from the blue to the white collar class. But college costs have kind of screwed that up for a certain percentage of the population. And it had the unintended effect of de-incentivizing the trades. Right, almost stigmatizing them for probably 40 years. I mean, when I went to high school, the idea of going to trade school was like, oh, you can't cut it in school.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not the case anymore, but we still have the gap to fill at the time that it was the case.
No, but since the computer revolution, that's where they were pushing all the kids, that the high tech. Computer programming, gaming was the ticket, go in this direction.
Well, STEM also includes in its tech and engineering, the physical production of those
Yeah,
plants.
but it's not, it's high-end educated.
Yeah,
STEM is, yeah, sit at a desk.
But but the salaries have come up so much more for what you can make as a carpenter and a plumber and electrician nowadays, that I think that alone probably will start to turn the tide a little bit. He said, you can make more money than a sociology major for sure. And not have $60,000 of student debt.
Yeah.
but yeah, so
So,
any
yep,
comments you have,
okay.
mark it up on the thing or send me an email or whatever.
All right.
I'm gonna be working on
Yeah,
it
I'll pass it on.
continually until it's due.
I'll just pass this down to you. And maybe it's not much, but it was just if there was something that I questioned or didn't understand, I just would have read.
Thanks, Groot.
Anybody have anything else on the grant applications? And let's move along to Swanson Park. A lot of you probably don't even know, but in the last month, Steve has done so much work on
Yes, he has.
Swanson Park. Did you, with them measuring the specific monuments, why don't you tell us well, you two guys tell us.
Well, we met with,
I think.
I tried to print it.
Yeah.
And it just only comes out so big,
uh,
you know, I don't have
I have a couple-
sophisticated
I have
printer.
I have a
don't
couple of
either.
things that I can
only
remember where I put it.
print.
I have some hard
We
copies.
met with the, forget the name of the company,
Mercer Monuments.
Mercer, that would do the
I got Dudley.
actual relocation of monuments.
So we can't do it with the town backhoe?
These are just some of the sketches that Steve's been preparing.
So he needed some actual
You know, he did a lot of work.
specifications of what he would be doing. So we started with just a survey of what's there, you know, the monuments that exist, both at the park and the park up at the intersection of Main Street and Riverside. And then just kind of placed them in the new plan. And then showed some bases. Some are very similar to the bases they're on, concrete bases, but some are raised a little bit so
Yeah,
that.
she's
you
got
don't-
it up there, which is great.
Oh,
Yeah, let me know if there's a particular one you wanna look at. I've got them all open.
so this was the survey and it was, you know, just kind of a simple survey, just get some dimensions and images of the existing monuments. And then went from there to placing them in the new plan, the concept plan. And then this was the final, just a very simple, you know, these are the concrete bases. They'd be so big, you know,
And that was with the goal of making the top of them level, more or
a
less.
lot more level
More
than they
level
are
than-
now.
So
You
you
know,
can
kind
kind of.
of up and down all over the place.
So going
I think
below
it's-
frost, so these aren't gonna move. Is that
Right.
the idea?
Right,
Yeah, this,
3 feet.
this one right here, I think shows them all specifically numbered and like where they're going.
And
I
if
think
you,
that's
the ones up at the intersection, the big one, this, on
Yeah.
stone is World War One. And, we realized in our survey.
There is no World War
that
II.
there's no World War II. The one up on the common is the Spanish-American.
I knew there was
War and
one
the
up there,
Civil
but I
War.
couldn't remember.
Yeah, and I forgot about it because
Yeah.
it's hidden in the garden there. Can you think of any other in town?
Well, the one in Fabian, you got that?
No,
Is that the one in front of the old post office?
Yes,
so I wonder
But
what
they-
that one is.
well, the fellow that bought it now doesn't mind taking care of it, and I guess,
You're right. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
I'll stop by and I'll let you know what it
Okay.
is.
All right.
The
way
day,
home.
there was the day out there that the veterans were selling copies for Memorial Day, and I did stop to ask them. And somebody called Elmer, and Elmer said it was one of those up here. So the veterans groups themselves apparently do not know where the World War II monument is, if there is one. They
There isn't.
thought that one of the one that shows all the,
There is one up at the intersection that is for all the wars from the Revolutionary to Vietnam, stops at Vietnam.
right,
But that's the only one that would include it,
right.
but no specific, which I find hard to believe that World War II was, you know, forgotten.
Yeah, that's a big one. Well, thanks so much for doing all this work, Steve. Wow.
So making the case for leaving the ones at the intersection. Number one, it's big. What do you say it was?
9
Like
tons.
9
Wow.
tons.
I mean, that's
It's a big
that's
one.
an estimate based on visuals and his
And the weight
experience,
of
yeah.
cubic foot of stone.
Yeah.
It is a big monument.
It is. It's huge.
But that area, you know, with the mill being developed in the coming years, that's gonna be a key intersection.
Well, we did a study with UConn back when. And we tried to relook at the Buckley Hill Road intersection and Riverside Drive. Norma should remember that. Because of the when they shoot down,
That craft
South.
left turn.
make that left, they just shoot across. UConn did come up putting in what they called a rotary. Was what they had proposed. And then, so, you know, there is stuff on that, there was questions on it. But they did design that, and then when you go over to Main Street with these monuments were,
Mhm.
depending on what happens there, and when you're coming down around that corner, it does get a little. You know, tractor trailers, you know, they navigate it, but I mean, it gets tight at times. There was a possibility of doing something with that flagpole was, and it should be in the Yukon.
I'm sure I have it.
You've got it, I know you've got it.
We also have whatever CME did,
Right, that's,
because that Buckley Hill intersection was definitely one. I think both of those intersections were part of their analysis.
and the
and that-
bar grant, yeah.
Right, in that, and looking at maybe reconfiguring that as well, so
Mhm.
that's always an option.
Mhm.
And we still haven't gone to any of the meetings to run these ideas past them to see whether they have a preference.
True, yeah. Yeah. And
I
then,
think,
you know, would you relocate the ones at the intersection if you didn't relocate any others in town? You know, the one at the Common, the one in Fabian. If you're gonna relocate one set of monuments. You know, why not do them all or none, leave them dispersed throughout the town so that there's, you know, more exposure than just one spot.
Well,
Like I said, I'll find out the Fabian, I'll let you know.
I mean, just thinking in terms of the common, right? That is a nice space for a memorial because it is already a space which is suited to being there.
yes.
Right, the whole problem with the ones up at the Main Street intersection is that there's no reason to ever stand there. Right,
Yeah.
there's
There's plenty of reason not.
Yeah, exactly.
and you can't read them unless you get that right on top of them.
Right.
Right, yeah, even, you know, the main traffic they're not facing the main traffic, so there's literally no connection between any of the presence in that spot and the fact that this is in memoriam. Now, based on what we did, what I'm currently describing in that CIF grant is redoing 2 memorial parks with the presumption that this stays in place, because it sort of dresses up the top of that intersection with a little landscaping, and a bench. It could be better. Also, at least one of the monuments is redundant to a monument that's in Swanson Park, which is the World War I memorial is redundant, I think.
Same names?
Same war.
There's,
Yeah, but I think that one's got names on it. If I remember
They
correctly.
could go next to each other in the park.
this has names of everyone who served.
Right. Where the ones in the park are usually more generalized.
Yeah,
And are we still talking about, I've kind of lost track, are we still talking about using this to get a grant?
Swanson Park definitely, and probably also this are in my CIF.
Okay.
There's three components to that. The main thing is Main Street reconstruction and sidewalk. The second thing is to close the renovation gap funding for 65 Main.
Yeah,
And then the third thing to close the whole loop on the whole
Right.
neighborhood is Swanson Park. And right now, also that one.
that one being, that's right.
The one across from River Mill,
This one.
the Main Street Riverside with the 3 hidden in plain sight monuments.
No. I think it would be a good idea, and I think would help a little blurb in the grant if we took this to a public meeting. And this is a community issue, the monuments spread around town. And it'd be nice to have community input. You think it's a good idea to bring these all into Thompson develops a monument park. And we'll bring
But you have to have, when does this have to be
The
submitted?
30th.
So we don't have time
We
to
don't
do
have
that.
time.
It
What,
doesn't mean that I can't build in before we finalize any.
We will
designs.
have.
We will have, and
Right.
in fact, that would be very favorable in terms
Right.
of ECD. They'd like to see the public.
Exactly.
one of the things that she can't capitalize on is the Legion and the VFW are in favor,
Right,
and
Yes.
use that mostly because we've already engaged them
right.
in conversation about, doing that. So she can include that now.
Right. I think that could be a big standout point in the whole application.
Between the VFW and the Legion,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
because they are in total support.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Yeah,
Ken, back in the day, was this always an island
As
memorial?
long as I can remember.
Because I know there was a.
I can only go back
retail
68 years.
center down where the library is. There was a whole corner of shops and stores and things, right? Not too far away.
Well, where your library is, that's what was there. Right there.
Yeah, that would be right there.
That was the library.
So-
To the left going up Main, that island went in at some point. I don't know when.
Yeah, the driveway from Main Street turning right into the library, that was basically the street, wasn't it?
That was Walker Street, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, even I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until we had the
That's
major
not all
fire.
that long ago,
That was in the,
but I can't remember.
I mean.
it was around 1980, 81 that we lost that building
Right, right,
to the fire.
right.
To the,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. That started in Cumberland Farms, an electrical fire, which was the last building down towards the river when.
Yeah.
Where Market is.
I guess I don't really have any strong opinions about that center area, except it just does concern me that it's not safe, like what Bernie said.
No,
Even
it's
if we
not.
put a bench in it. I mean, should we be encouraging people?
No, I don't think we need a bench.
No, I think kind of one of the major points of doing this is to get that monument out of there and get it to
Wow.
where it can be seen.
No, you can leave
You know,
the flagpole right where it is.
No harm.
No harm at all.
Yeah, you can see that from a distance. Yeah, I almost think
Yeah.
if the monuments are to be viewed, which I think is a goal that's not a great place to view them.
It's not
It's
safe.
just not safe. Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure I already built into my estimates Mercer's numbers for moving everything.
Okay,
Because that's what you do with a grant. You ask for everything.
Right.
And you scale to what you get.
And-
So,
and if it's to be two parks, I mean, could there be, if there's not enough room in Swanson Park, or people just want to spread it out, to have them more intermixed in the community? I mean, could they be near the library in the parking lot, or near the town hall, or in Riverside Park or something, if you're building it as two parks?
well,
I
that's
don't know.
how I'm currently describing it, based on the notion that we are leaving those in place
Okay.
and providing enhanced landscaping, essentially beautifying it. And then the major work would be Swanson Park, moving off the
Okay.
road, having the. That's all fungible. Right, we want this to be attractive because it's still a kind of a gateway, even though it's a minor gateway point. I mean, it's there needs to be something there, whether it's a rotary or an island, because otherwise you've got the same problem you have with an
Plain
ocean
road.
pavement.
Mhm.
So, I'm just using the highest numbers I have and
Okay.
describing something.
Do we change the name from Swanson Park to Monument Park? I mean, that's kind of.
There, I
patriotic
think you
sort of
might have
thing.
some.
Well, the question is,
I
where
don't
did the
know.
name Swanson Park come from?
From
There's a soldier that
Oscar
has a
Swanson.
monument there. Yeah,
Oh,
I don't
really?
know.
Okay.
There's a date on it when
I
it was
believe
dedicated.
He's buried in the
Died
cemetery right over here.
World War I.
So it is already
Yeah.
tied to patriotically speaking.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
already there.
Yeah,
Well, these are all perfect things. If we, Amy was gonna reach out, I think, to the Legion and the Veterans to one of their meeting dates, so that people from MSRAC could go to one of their meetings and get more formally reach out to them. So I haven't heard of that. I can send her an email and ask her, but
I
all
don't think
these
it's
things.
Super
could be-
high on the list.
Yeah,
of
I know.
Things right now.
I can understand that. But I mean, that's still our goal, right? We want to
Yes.
we want to go to one of their meetings.
Oh, and get some feedback.
And get
stuff.
more feedback, like, and I think keeping them in the circle or not keeping them in the circle is their feedback would be important, don't you think?
Definitely.
Mhm.
Very important.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll keep moving forward and hopefully we'll get
Just
funded
just
for it.
one comment on the layout. And I don't remember, that's why I'm asking you, because you laid it out. Since we know there is no World War World War II monument,
Yeah,
did you put that into this to
I did
add
not,
one?
but there's space. you know,
Okay,
there's-
no, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, yeah,
This is-
I
that's the
just couldn't
actual-
remember. That,
Because I didn't know if one would be found or if,
but since there isn't one, we know we need to add one.
I would think.
So that, no, that'd be appropriately to go across.
What's
So
the one in Fabian? Is that World War
We don't
II?
know.
I'm gonna check on the way home. And I'll find out. I'll stop. But when you're looking at this, since we know that there's one missing,
Yeah,
that in the design, maybe you can adjust it to show this is now the World War II we've planned, for future or whatever, that we put
Yeah.
it there. And not being, looking ahead, hopefully nothing ever does happen. About the future expansion.
it's
you
a
know,
reality.
It is a reality, and that's the unfortunate part.
Yeah,
Whether they, you have room to, go on opposite ends and
Yeah.
continue to go out.
And maybe the one in Fabian, after you check it out, like that does seem to be not at a regular public gathering.
No, but it's right in front of the old post
Okay.
office,
Right
and I
on.
forgot about that one.
But maybe that one could be moved to here if it's not there for any like really specific historic
that makes
meeting,
sense.
because people gather in the common, that makes sense, but people, I mean, I know.
Well, sometimes
But-
different villages in town can be a little attached to
Well,
things.
that would be a reason not to move it.
And that could
But
be a
that would be
possibility.
something to ask the
But a
veterans.
lot of the, I don't want to say the generations are starting to change.
Yes,
So what is a priority to the new generations moving in? Manya, what are you talking about? There's no attachment.
yeah.
So eventually it's gonna happen.
I mean, if it was like in honor of somebody from that village that was.
Yeah, I'll find
or
out when I
something,
show
then
you.
it seems like it would be
There's
important. to
names
see
on it.
there.
and I
But I'll
think-
take a picture and I'll send it
So what's the old post office now?
Residential.
So it might be a case of moving it, even if they wanted to stay in the village, to something more public in that village. Maybe there's a little pocket.
Well, the
park.
Army Corps of Engineers property. Kind of
It'll
people,
probably get vandalized there.
but there's parking and
Yeah.
stuff, so people could park there to see it. you know.
Personally, I would push to bring everything together in one spot, if we have community support or.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get the one up at the Common with the
Yeah.
Spanish American.
And civil,
Right.
Spanish man. They
I
want
doubt
it
if they
together.
want that moved.
Probably not.
It's a big one too.
But again, that's in a spot where
It can be
it's
honest.
aesthetically appropriate.
Yeah, the Common is, I don't see it ever changing in the near or distant future.
I wish it was town owned, but
It is owned by the
church.
church.
I know
Yes, it is.
this should be town owned.
Couldn't agree with you more, but
It is what it is.
Mhm.
All right, well, this was a good dialogue, got some good ideas going here. But I guess I know Steve has to leave at 10, so I guess we should move on a little bit.
19 minutes.
Unless anybody has anything left on that, I don't want to cut anybody short.
No, the only other thing was the shrub removal. I still think those shrubs should be pulled out of there. They're just so huge.
Yeah, well, I know this committee encouraged the selectmen to authorize DPW, so we just didn't want to step on the toes of the veterans
Yeah.
by like.
And that's what
yanking them
that meeting
out.
is going.
Yeah, so that's like one other item to discuss with them.
So maybe you can remember to bring that up at a Board of Selectmen meeting under your comment coming up, because. You
We
know,
just had a meeting Tuesday night.
I know.
Yeah.
So maybe at the next one, just
Yeah.
bringing that up. I mean, it's a simple action and we've already talked to.
Oh, without
Debbie
doubt.
Selmer.
Yeah,
You know, it'll just help people see the park so much better.
I'll find out from John who found who the commander is over at the. And her contact info.
Okay, so in our ongoing committee business, we have the lot tip sidewalk project. I think the punch list items are underway. I see the crews about. Is there any?
Well, they're essentially done now until they
Okay.
come back to do Blaine Road.
Okay,
They repaired the sidewalk in front of the bank. They added that to the scope. They fixed up some of the landscape plants that got wonky. I may have made an error in that we had agreed not to replace the ones that got salt burned over here, because when we looked at them in the earlier spring, it looked like they were coming back. They're still looking pretty hammered, so I don't know. But at this point, I've sort of said, fine, we're not replacing them. We'll see if they come back. They completed the patio area and the landscaping in front of Milltown. And
bus shelters in.
bus shelter is in. I have informed NECOG that it is there. I have yet to see anybody in it, but that's okay. It is probably gonna be more rainy and snowy weather anyway.
all right.
And they repeated some hydro seeding, because some of the hydro seeding they did later on didn't take.
Oh.
Most of it's coming in now, so they're coming back, probably shortly after Labor Day to start the Blaine Road tee off and do the last two stamped crosswalks. DOT did accept our request to not rip out the crosswalk that we just installed.
Oh, thank heavens.
So they did, and they completed their project. So
Okay.
there's an actual ADA pad on the opposite side of our existing crosswalk. So the stamped asphalt folks will come back when they also do the one to connect from Blaine to the one that's there.
Nice.
So everything is pretty tidy.
So what's at the Milltown, what's happening with, are they just
I
like,
didn't want
just
to ask.
leaving that pavement there? I mean,
So Eric, what is his last name? Miller?
Murray
Murray.
sounds right.
Murray.
Was connected to the rights of way division. They discussed it. I do not know what terms were offered to him, but I do know that he said they were taking a pass. So we have completed to the original plan.
Oh. That's
Yeah,
big
it looks
news.
nice.
That's big
Yeah,
news.
It looks very nice.
Yeah.
Did they get any outdoor tables out there yet?
They've used it for one or two events. They haven't put
Well, the
anything.
TBA was out there.
TBA had a mixer
Yeah.
there.
Oh, I gotta go by there.
So I don't know if they just want to use it for the occasional event or if they just haven't gotten outdoor seating yet.
Well, it has-
When it's an expense.
It's an expense, right? It might take a couple years to get
Yeah.
a full complement of, I don't know, to see, you could easily fit 30 people out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, you can add like another third to your interior
Right,
capacity.
so, but that would be an investment of, oh, cool, I want to go see that.
Yeah, it did. Looks really.
So that is pretty ironic, though.
It is more or less the way I thought it was gonna play out.
Okay, well, all right.
The Blaine Road, did we ever catch up with the fire department?
Well, what I did, because just talking to one fire chief, I was thinking about this over the winter, and I was like, I'm a volunteer, they're a volunteer. I need to get like people with authority who really more from the town. So I sent an email to Joe and the fire marshal and with the plans and said, look at these. How big is your equipment? You know, let's meet at the site if you want. So they could evaluate the historic withdrawal of water, the future withdrawal of water. Are there any other options? That's the thing. I said, like, I have no idea how it's used, and just for, I just thought it'd be better to go through the town people. I don't know, instead of,
Just anecdotally, I happened to be talking to my across the street neighbor yesterday.
Okay.
Who is now with East Putnam Fire, but was with East Thompson Fire. I was asking him about that. I said, you know, where do all the other trucks draft? He said, they can draft in multiple places. And there's a hydrant. Not very far from there.
okay,
So there is a convenience factor for them, I'm sure. But even as Janet and I were sort of talking about this the other day, there's the North Grosvenor Tail Pond, which you can drive right back to and drop a hose in
Right.
over the dam.
so,
You're talking behind the drafters?
Yeah.
Well, again, a lot of your water and shuttling has to do where your fire is.
Sure.
What sections of town, for where you're gonna draft from.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if you're drafting up Route 12 towards the Mass line. You know, you're gonna go, say, the drafters. If you're drafting this section of town that way, you're gonna go to Blaine Road. You know, you can use the hydrants to a point, but you have to notify Connecticut Water, and they only keep so much water in the system. You know, with the tank. So there's a lot of moving pieces where and why you draft from certain places. Then you get into the winter times where water has to be running to get water out. If it's running, you know, like a river, it's never gonna be iced over. So there's a whole bunch of different
right,
variables.
and that's why I figured the fire marshal would be a good representative of the town and in general. And their patterns, I mean, if he wants to decide to invite all the chiefs, and that comes through the town. And I don't know, can they pull, I mean, if this is only during active fires, can they just pull over in the shoulder, you know, does the whole design of the intersection need to change, or can they just pull over? You know, and buy a longer hose or something, and.
Well, you're drafting, and you can only draft so many feet in order to get the water. You know, there is a limitation.
Right, and so that's,
Because of elevation and the pump and how that
Right.
all drafts.
right,
Okay, so.
So-
The closer to ground level you are, the more water you can move. If you're picking up from a high elevation, you're not drafting enough, you're not moving enough water. So there's all variables in
right,
pump operation. The fire marshal is great to use, but your primary. Fire department is the one that's right here, because it's in their district. And they definitely should be. You know,
okay,
that chief should be included, or a representative from that department.
So we're right back to getting in touch with John.
Or could, I mean, I guess I just feel like,
It won't hurt just to talk with them.
right. Well, I can't find his phone number anymore. Actually, I'd rather email him because then I can forward him the email that I sent to everybody else with the plan so that they can look at them and then make a meeting with everybody there. I don't want to individually. I mean, because there's public works too. There's public works. Need it, maybe.
Well,
They need
yeah,
it
Public Works at times drafts out of it themselves when they do road sweeping for the water tank.
Right, so.
Yeah.
So understanding what are the design vehicles and I mean, basically the goal is that the intersection design of Blaine Road, that the consultant design doesn't have to change. Right, I mean, we already have a design, we have a contractor, we have a DOT per.
And again,
Perfect.
it may be just
So-
having the curbing where it's flat. If they have to drive up, they could drive.
What, isn't that what we're waiting for anyway?
Yes.
Yeah, but there's a difference because the. Tier wondered if you could just make it be like part pavement markings, but that's still gonna have a little bit of the effect
Yeah.
that we have right now.
Right.
That you can drive straight into something. If, because a curve is gonna come almost 90 degrees across versus having it be. The
Right.
actual curve that follows the double yellow curved lines in the road. So. Is there a way to keep the original design?
I mean, I just obviously did that markup. Right off the
Right.
top of my head,
Right.
that day I ran into DPW. And they did mention some of the stuff about, how they wanted to draw out of that little impoundment or whatever that is on the side. So that does, obviously, the thing of greatest convenience for them is the most detrimental to the existing design.
Yeah.
Right, so
Like,
that's
are there alternates?
I just thought of one that may be a possibility that they put a standpipe.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
There is that possibility.
Right.
We do have standpipes in various ponds throughout.
Great idea.
Woodstock is great for it. So,
Great idea.
that may be,
But
You
they
know, an
still have to
option.
park somewhere to use the standpipe.
but your standpipe can be offset,
Right.
wherever it's coming
Right.
in. So there is a
But
possibility.
but by standpipe, do you mean moving it from that location completely? Or they still more or less use that corner?
You're gonna
Standpipe
use
is
the
more or less-
corner, but the standpipe could be diagonal going in instead of being, to the corner. So where they may be actually on the pavement and the standpipe will be going in,
So
okay?
they would park more in the road then and
Possibly,
off
yeah.
the road because of the standpipe.
Right.
Okay, I got it.
But again, that's part of a conversation
Right.
to have, to understand what their needs are,
Yeah.
to alleviate that, so.
Right, and I just didn't, I think we just need some municipal representatives at the meeting, So,
Well, I'm in for whenever it is.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
don't
I'll
have a
forward
problem
you-
either.
and I'll
That's-
forward it to you. The plans and the email that I forwarded that I sent to Jamie and Joe. About, let's evaluate this and. Okay. All right. Rivermill. Is the state doing anything?
Yes.
They finally agreed.
Well, they sent a checklist of documents to Gumpert's lawyer and our lawyer. I believe today, and Slater's been working on them. It's a long checklist. Every time you turn around, but he said he had them almost all assembled, but there was also stuff coming from Gumpert's side, so he and Pam are having a touch base call to make sure they're not duplicating efforts. And we're gonna send it back to the state, and then we're gonna see.
But at least we got the checklist that they needed. Well, before we were just waiting for them to
Well, we, you know,
Respond.
everything is like, I send an email or Pam sends an email or somebody sends an email and it's like a week until you get a response, sometimes more than that. By the time you get the response, sometimes you don't even remember why you asked the question. Like we end up, I'm not kidding, we end up covering the same territory so often, like, why are they asking for this document? This document doesn't really exist. Like we've had that specific conversation about a form or letter that they request from some other agency that doesn't really exist. It is not a form that that agency actually submits in the way that DECD is requesting it. So what do we do? And then we have to wait 2 or 3 answers before they get through all of their probably multiple people asking the same question. And then we get an answer and then it creeps forward a little bit. I mean, you know, it's out there, they're gonna give us the money, we just keep. But Pam and Ken are talking today.
Good.
All right, then move on to 630 Riverside Drive. We just have that on there for, we hear anything.
I do have a developer who has been trying to reach Andy Scott to make an offer. I do not know what the current status of that is, because he's also working on a couple of other things, I believe you know, my friend.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll see, I put him in touch with Wayne. Wayne seemed pretty comfortable with the strategy that he proposed, the potential buyer. And that's always like a backstop for me, like when people get really interested in 630, I say, you need to talk to Wayne to make sure that you understand things like the Transfer Act, which I still do not understand. I just say the words and say, talk to Wayne. And he seemed comfortable with all of it. Put him also in touch with Andy Camolo and Jay Lorette, who were interested in that parcel, but who can't like take the time to pressure Andy Scott. So there might be some synergy there for them to work together on something. We'll see. We have the student project in hand, you know, that'll be supportive either of future grants or of an RFP to find a developer if it goes that route. But, you know, I'd like to shake it loose before November. But we'll see what happens.
Backing up, this is probably crazy, but is there any wisdom in asking UConn to have, the site is so important, to have another group of kids do another study of the same site and see what they come up with?
Sort of, yes, not through the same program. I wouldn't put it out as another senior project. But actually Wayne is now working for the TAB program at UConn, which is essentially their brownfields division. And they do have interns who work on specifically issues related to brownfields.
Yeah.
They do a lot of inventorying and stuff. I think he'd actually already suggested pulling an intern on for that, but I don't actually know what his specific goal was on that. So, yeah, probably.
Okay.
But, you know, we need to decide what that would be for realsies.
Okay, 65 Main Street.
Well, we had a little incident, which was, we had some kids break in.
Oh,
It's been
Oh,
vacant for 11 years. And just as we're getting to reno it, we had some kids break in. I've since had the locks changed. Amy had Pete go over and put deadbolt lock, because I had changed the locks almost 2 years ago, but I just changed them in kind to another regular lock set. The kind that you can break into with a credit card, apparently.
Oh, jeez.
Which is exactly what they did. There was no forced entry.
Yeah.
They graffitied all up on the inside. They might have banged another hole in the wall, but you know what? We're gonna be renovating in a few weeks,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't really care. But it does sort of put a button on that notion that you just can't leave a property vacant forever. You have to maintain it, or else that's what it becomes. It's a magnet for vandalism and mischief. So that was a pretty entertaining afternoon. It was actually after the last town meeting,
oh,
because we had a call and Santos and I walked down there. I was worried it was squatters. So my husband and Santos and I walked down there just to see, and they were in there.
oh.
The kids, there were bikes in the back, and it was pretty entertaining actually in the end.
So.
What are you guys doing in here?
No,
You
they
give 'em
ran
some-
off, and then somebody else intercepted them as they were running off, and we had the state trooper come up.
Perfect.
It was, and they were up in 5 minutes. They were up so fast, I was shocked.
So we got the kid.
Wow.
Yeah, we got the kids. Good.
Are they local?
Community service.
Oh, of course, they're on bicycles.
Yeah, I imagine those kids are gonna be seeing some community service hours, but I haven't had any follow-up from Troop B, so I don't know what the disposition of that is.
But that part's great, because if they get caught, word spreads.
Right.
Don't.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully. But anyway, in terms of the project itself, I have the executed contract from USDA UAIP for the programming. 2 weeks, 2 months late. They signed it on the 20th of April and never sent it to me. I finally shook it loose at the beginning of this week. So I'm setting up a planning partners meeting probably for next Wednesday. If anybody wants to be on that, they're welcome to. To strategize that process, which is going to be, the timeline, the milestones. How are we initiating the year-long public engagement workshop? When are we advertising for the permaculture consultant? All of that stuff. So I hope to get that wrapped up next week. Santos and I were working on the library roof. That's about to start. So now essentially he and I are GCing the project so that we don't have to bid the whole thing out to one contractor. And that's to keep the costs down. Because obviously if we're bidding to a contractor and he's subbing, he's taking a piece of whatever is going to the subs. So we're going to start either with the foundation of the roof. I think Brian was putting the bid package together for the roof first. And I think we're going to post that Monday. So we're just going to 65.
Okay, he doesn't feel that the reinforcement of the
That is what-
section is more important at the moment, at least stabilize it.
That is kind of what I had suggested, but he is the construction expert, so if he says to me roof, I say, okay. I mean, except for the foundation, you would normally work top to bottom. But he seems to think this is the way to go, so I'm okay with it. It's his expertise. So again, going back to that CIF grant, we are going to be very parsimonious with the Reno funds that we have from the Small Business Administration, because we know that it's slightly less than half what we really need because of the sort of cockamamie way that request got sent in. I could have probably asked for twice as much and gotten it, but we didn't have the time to alter the lowball estimate for the Turtle Lot Trust in order to get the full amount from the Fed. It is what it is. But that CIF grant is asking for the backfill on the current plan. And then in future rounds, I'll go and I'll ask to do the second and third floors. Because I can go back on the same master project and subsequent. So I'm gonna get this puppy done.
Yeah, well, the roof and the foundation are two really important parts.
Mhm.
We can get those done to keep a building from deteriorating. For sure.
So that's where we are. And Brian was emailing Marie yesterday to ask if she would be able to post to CT Source as of Monday. So that's what I'm expecting right now.
Nice. Anybody have any other comments on 65 Main?
Oh, going back to Blaine Road though, so I was, ECCD did get their funding
Oh, that's right.
approved. That grant technically expired because CTD could not get their act together over 4 years to finalize the contract. So Dan at ECCD had some conversations with CTD and they have found a place to extend that funding. So they will come in on Blaine Road and they will go over to the library. We're trying to figure out
So
what's happening.
how does that money flow? Are they gonna give it to the town? The town's gonna pay the contractor?
It's all ECCD. Our only role is to say, yes, please come work on our property.
So they're gonna actually, are they responsible for excavation? Are they responsible for providing bioretention media? Are they responsible for
Blaine?
landscaping? Yeah.
They are essentially doing the landscaping bit. So any construction is us, as I
Okay.
understand. We should probably have a conversation with Dan, but, because this is going back. You know,
Right.
we are setting the stage, doing our work,
And-
and then they're coming in and doing the.
Yeah,
landscape.
and with noons, because they've got a,
Right,
there's, somebody has to know what work is and who's the scope that's gonna be divided by the various parties. If they're just gonna pay for plants, because then the town might have already had in the budget, the plants, right?
I don't think so.
No,
I think it's
okay,
just the construction, but it is definitely something we're gonna have to touch base on, because I am going off whatever is in the
Yeah.
back of my head last
Could
time
you-
this was talked.
could you forward me the Noons' bid for the Blaine Road so I can see what's in it? Cause I'm also interested in how many linear feet of granite curb they have included. In case there is any revisions from the fire marshal stuff.
See?
Thank you. I gotta go.
Right,
I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
but that,
Sorry.
I mean, that's
See you
good if they're gonna pay for a paper landscaping and the rain garden.
I am pretty sure there's no landscaping, and I mean, maybe loom.
Okay, I thought they had the plants in there that were the similar plants, the native species that they used like up and down the sidewalk project. So,
Maybe for that side,
okay,
for the far side,
okay,
but we'll go.
yeah,
back
because
and
we're
look
gonna
at
have
it
to
and establish it.
coordinate that, yeah. So moving on to E, other committee business, this is interesting because I did reach out to Ryan because he was talking about all his biodiesel and this property, that property. I know I was confused. And I wasn't sure how it tied into MSRAC, so I just asked him to talk to us, like, you know, in general, what good ideas do you have?
He was emailing
That
as of
ties
just
in,
yesterday, right? So I'm surprised he's not.
yeah,
hitting me. He
that
does have
ties
a
into
job, though.
MSRAC's goals and can reuse brownfields and can generate revenue.
There's an email from him. No.
I know that the propane tank farm is, they got one big tank in there.
Yeah, I happened to go by when they had the crane and dropping it into place.
Oh, did they finally have it in?
Yeah, there's one,
Okay.
Yeah, and there's this big tub-like structure around it that I assume is a, a spill guard.
And I think they have room at that place for one more tank, so I did, put them in touch, that Spicer Gas, that Bill Cummings, I did give Ryan Bill Cummings's contact information in case he wants to contact. I mean, but that's not like directly under rail. I mean, he has some ideas for rail. And I don't know if there's any other sites that have been investigated.
for rail or,
Well, to bring the biodiesel in the tank farm near the rail. I know that's one of his things.
you got the spur that's down in the industrial park.
But is there
That,
any other places like, I don't know, along the French River, any other?
Well, you
Unused.
got the old Mechanicsville site. I don't know if there's a spur there, but.
I don't remember if there is one,
I-
and you got a small spur at the bottom of Buckley Hill.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's no room there really but Mechanicsville, that's a possibility. There's
Awesome.
plenty of room to work something there. There's no residential nearby to speak of. I mean, there's a small amount there in the apartment building.
But, to do a biodiesel tank farm or whatever they're talking. I would have to think that whoever owns the industrial park with the spur that they have,
Would be interested.
Yeah,
And
I've spoken to him a little bit about it, and I won't say that I fully know what it is that he's proposing. But we've had a few conversations about it, and the logic of it is all pretty sound. He's also on the Agriculture Commission now, so I send them like blasts I get from USDA, and one of the blasts I got was about the USDA REAP grant, which is the Renewable Energy for Agricultural Producers Grant Program. And he really latched onto that, and he started drafting something like great. I think he's thinking on a very high level of trying to connect some stuff together, but I don't think he's got all the pieces. And I think he wants to communicate with Spicer to see if maybe there's some synergy there. I think he might want to talk to like the Normans, because they want to, I think, monetize some of their land for some stuff. But his expertise is obviously on the finance and logistics side. Now, that's something I completely lack. So I'm glad that he's applying it, but it does mean that it's not always the easiest thing to follow all the way along his through line, what he's planning.
Is this the fellow who was sitting here last
Yeah,
meeting?
he's an alternate member of the.
Yeah, he's not-
Okay.
Yeah, and also like kind of how it ties into MSRAC. Like, is it,
A lot of that is probably economic development,
that's what I wonder.
It is.
Like,
It is.
except
but I
when you
think
get
in
into
terms of
6:30 or.
The scale of the projects that this committee looks at versus the scale of the projects that EDC looks at, I think this is a better group to engage with in that sense, and it's only just barely out of the project
Right.
area, right?
okay,
So I would say that at least the Reardon Road Industrial Park, close enough for horseshoes.
so yeah, we can see what he has in mind, if the
I'm
committee
gonna,
is
I'm gonna
interested
connect
in
him
it.
with Amanda Johnson at Connecticut Airbnb, because she is their specialist in farm energy and the REAP grant program, and she assists applicants, so
Okay.
I'm gonna connect them to
Is
this.
he interested in this just as a concept by being, members of these commissions, or is he got a business interest?
He's trying to bring economic development to town.
Yeah, I think it's sort of an all of the above.
Yeah.
And he's very interested in the livelihood of the town, for sure.
Even though he's on the finance and logistics side. If he comes up with ideas that we haven't thought of, it's a help.
Well, yeah, he's definitely is. I definitely understand that one of his goals is to bring revenue into the town somehow. I don't know if these things are taxed. I don't know.
Well, they're definitely taxed. How they get taxed, I don't.
And if the
exactly
town
know.
gets any of it or just the state, I don't know.
Right.
So anyhow, I asked him just to tell it. Let us know give us a presentation or,
No, let's do it for the next time.
yep. We'll leave it on the agenda for next time. All right. I guess we're all set.
Thank you.
I guess we can adjourn.
Yeah,
Thanks for everybody's good ideas.
I'll get John's email address.
Okay,
I'll send it to you.
well, and I'll,
And I'm gonna find out what the
Email.
monument is up in
Okay.
the.
excellent.
Well, are you headed home after this?
Yes,
Why don't you just stop into his shop and say, would you call us and set something up? Because he's terrible on email.
well, if you send him something, he reads it, it's not a problem,
Well, he may read it, but he doesn't reply to it.
okay? But
But I want to get something that is more like official with the town and not just one individual from one fire station, because like he might be so, I think we need to get bigger consensus. That we don't,
Well, I
That's
would,
my
I would very
concern.
much like Jamie's and Joe's input there. And Jamie used to be the chief at community, so he actually is more than just broadly aware of the needs. He would be specifically more aware of the needs of the community.
Jamie can give his fire marshal expertise in his fire. You still should deal with the chief appropriately as well.
Right.
I mean, that's only. If you're gonna do
Okay.
something to the fire service, yes, Jamie goes in, he was the chief, he does the investigations, but he's not doing the day-to-day.
Chief work.
Chief work
right,
of shuttling water and stuff, and you should.
right. But
Yep.
that's why I kind of wanted to be an email because I don't want to be